The Crypto Markets Update is brought to you by KuCoin, the best place to find the next crypto gem.
All right, joining me is Laura Shin, crypto journalist, host of the Unchained podcast, and author of The Cryptopians, who also joins me on CDTV as my special co-host. Welcome, Laura. And we have our crypto markets guest, Two Sigma Ventures principal, Andy Kangpan. Welcome, Andy and Laura.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So you guys are on one of our early morning panels as well, joining Laura, who's just also on with us on talking about VC funding. So thanks for joining us this morning. Maybe let's take a look at the markets first, though. So we're seeing actually now mixed results in the stock market, Andy, and the crypto markets also seem to be mixed. What do you see in going forward? You know, October is supposed to be a seasonally positive month for Bitcoin and other crypto markets, but, you know, we're in a bit of a rut right now.
Yeah, indeed. I think public markets are always very hard to predict. So from a venture capital perspective, you know, we try not to make forecasts around where the market's going to be in the very short term. But, you know, we're obviously monitoring the situation very closely as the early stage ecosystem is correlated, particularly in the early stage crypto space. So it is a situation we're closely monitoring.
All right. So at Ideas, you're speaking about the venture capital perspective on the digital economy. What's the sector that excites you the most right now? And, you know, what has the most potential for growth in the next 5 years?
Yeah, one of the areas that we're very excited about is the opportunity for larger institutional market participants to enter the decentralized finance ecosystem. And so in order for that to happen, we believe there are a number of different pain points that need to be addressed for those market participants. As an example, one of the areas that we've been looking closely at are opportunities to alleviate some of the compliance concerns that these market participants have. So actually one of the guests at the conference today, Parallel Markets, is offering a very interesting solution around compliance and counterparty risk. So that's a space that we're watching very closely and we believe could propel the space forward in the coming quarters.
Well, so Laura, you're going to be a moderator for the panel. Maybe you could give us a preview of where you're hoping to drive the conversation this morning.
Well, excuse me, what I was wondering is how the collapse of Terra and then the bankruptcies of 3AC and Celsius and Voyager have affected conversations around regulation and compliance.
Yeah, they've certainly influenced the market sentiment dramatically, and I think from a regulator's perspective, I would imagine it's very concerning. Look, I think that these are very negative events for the market, and what caused those events, I think, are still being investigated and will certainly impact how we look at the space going forward. So, yeah, I absolutely think it is a big impact for both the public space as well as our side of the market as well in the early stage.
Do you think if there was more clarity from regulatory agencies on, you know, how to overlook this space, you know, registration and whatnot, this could have been prevented?
You know, it's always hard to say what could have been prevented. I do think regulatory clarity is something that is much desired for in this space. I think every founder that we work with is excited about the opportunity for regulators to put a stronger stake in the ground around how crypto is treated and what are the rules that we need to abide by. So I think regulatory clarity is something that we're looking forward to in the coming years.
At least for some of the bankruptcies, the issue was they were centralized and not decentralized, but there's been some indications that actually these bankruptcies have also cast a bad light even on DeFi, which, you know, people within crypto would disagree with. But do you find that regulators understand that nuance or that they don't?
I don't want to speculate on what the regulators do and don't understand, but I certainly think that the downfall of some of these centralized institutions is weighing on sentiment and the overall perception of the space at large. So absolutely, I think that it's hard to untangle the narratives of what is centralized and what is decentralized. We've been very impressed and encouraged by actually how resilient the decentralized protocols have been in this downturn. And so in many ways, I think that's a strong proof point around the strength of the system and the benefits that this technology can provide. So, yeah.
During this bear market, when we were speaking to Lauren Stefanian of Pantera Capital, she mentioned that they're focused on infrastructure, going to the grassroots building, I guess. So, where are you focused on? What crypto sector are you particularly seeing opportunities?
I would definitely echo Lauren's thoughts there. I think there are a number of opportunities at the infrastructure layer for companies to build really compelling products and services. Again, I would reiterate that one of the areas that we're looking into is the opportunity to attract new capital into the space. And one of the largest pockets of that we see is with institutional market participants. So that continues to be one of the areas that we look very deep into.
So to that end, last month, Two Sigma Ventures announced plans to invest $400 million across 2 new venture capital funds, and about 15% of its capital will go toward crypto and Web3 projects. So what's the status of that?
Yeah, we're very excited to have a set of new funds to deploy into the space. As we mentioned in the press release, we look across a pretty broad variety of sectors, with crypto being one of the key pillars for us. So we've been very excited to have that new capital and try to identify new projects to invest in. We have made some new investments in the past few quarters, which we haven't publicly announced yet, but we're excited to continue to try and identify new projects. Even in this downturn, we believe there are going to be exceptional opportunities for us to invest in that will drive significant upside for our portfolio and our investors.
Are you still getting a lot of institutional interest, willingness to put the funds down? Especially, we're still working through crypto contagion here. Laura mentioned Terra Luna, and we're still working through the bankruptcy processes of Voyager, as well as Three Arrows Capital and Celsius.
Yeah, the market sentiment overall certainly has become more negative relative to what we saw a year ago. But I think there are a subset of investors who have a high degree of conviction in the future of this space, and have seen that the space comes in cycles, both with a bull cycle and a bear cycle, that it presents a good opportunity in a down cycle to invest into. So we've been encouraged by our investors' continued interest in the space despite the recent market turbulence.
Yeah, and well, I just wanted to add on to that. I wondered how the collapse of Terra Luna has changed the types of advice you might give to portfolio companies or protocols.
Yeah, I think one of the pieces of advice that we are offering very strongly now to our portfolio founders is to bring on counsel earlier on in the process, and to think about engaging with regulators more proactively, even more so than we have in the past. As we've discussed, I do think that the recent events are inviting a greater degree of regulatory scrutiny, and so we do believe founders need to get ahead where they can, and if they have the financial resources to do so.
But in this macro environment, it seems to be very risk off, and we're seeing a flight to the dollar right now. So people are still interested in making crypto investments?
I think, relative to a year ago, I certainly think the market has cooled off on the space. Funding, even in the early stage ecosystem, has declined pretty dramatically relative to what we've seen, what we saw in 2021. But again, there's certainly still a significant amount of capital in the early stage ecosystem to invest into projects. And there are a surprisingly large number of firms that are still excited about the space despite the downturn. And if you compare where we are now relative to the previous bear cycle, the amount of interest and the volumes that we see in the markets today are significantly more robust. So that leaves us encouraged that despite the negative news, there's still continued interest in the space.